Welcome, everybody. It's been a minute since I did an info dump, and I wanted to get back to it in grand tradition by inviting my friend Carmilla Harker in to talk about the Renaissance of the vampire.
I make it sound so dramatic, but yes. Hi, everybody. If you are on live, thank you for having me. I'm so happy that I managed to make a friend so that I can hold them hostage on the internet and yap about my favorite thing in the world for however long this takes. And waiting for some gardening to kick in. So, but
So my question, my
yes.
first question is, how far have we come from Edward?
Not far enough, I think, is my opinion. But enough that I think people really understand why those books were made. The dark fantasy and like the romantasy genre as a whole has never been bigger than it has now. It hasn't it has not reached the same heights within Mormonism. There is an entire video by Alyssa Grenfell, who is an amazing ex-Mormon content creator who shares things about Mormon culture, their like secret religious activities, things like that. And she has an entire video on the Twilight series as a whole and how much you can really tell that this was written by a Mormon, not just from an outside perspective, but from someone who lived in that culture. How much, especially Edward, is portrayed as like constantly fighting against some sort of like lustful impulse that they must always keep back is really well represented by the concept of a vampire who is, constantly having to fight back an animal nature. One is just sex and the other one is food. And again, that's not new territory. It never has been. The vampire in English classes taught across high schools today still talks about the vampire as, code for sexual repression. And if you're talking about it from about like 1860 into honestly about the 2010s, I would say you would be correct. But the Renaissance I speak of is people using vampirism in more ways and in more contexts than just sex. I think Sinners is probably the best example of this. That is an amazing film for any of you that have not watched it. Jada, you've seen this?
Yes.
If you haven't, I'm gonna be fucking mad.
Oh no! Yeah, I caught it in the theater.
Can swear
and was
on this
just
show, right?
good experience. Oof.
Yes, that is an amazing film. If you haven't watched it, please do. It's on HBO. But the fact that vampirism is being used as a segue for colonization, racial tensions, and it's not homogeny. It's basically like the absorption of culture into whiteness, or specifically the theft of black
I see whiteness
culture.
like a gelatinous cube in a D&D dungeon, where
it really is
kind of sucks everything into it to try to smother it into this beige mass that really is no fun at all. It makes no sense.
It really doesn't. It is. It's always hard, right? I know this is my vampire show time, but this is also secretly my I talk to you about politics time. But I really don't think that people understand cultural appropriation and the idea just that right there, and they don't understand it on purpose. And if you watch this movie and don't understand what they're talking about, you're the fucking problem. It's the same thing with
No lie.
Yeah, like the best way to explain cultural appropriation to people outside of this film is The Nightmare Before Christmas. On God, that is what that film is about. Is a bunch of Halloween creatures, which are wonderful, and they love Halloween. He gets bored of Halloween Town and how it doesn't bring him fulfillment anymore. So he goes to Christmas Town, doesn't understand anything that he sees, doesn't speak to anybody that lives there outside of harassing some children through a window. Um, marvels about snow and then brings it back to Halloween Town completely divorced from the context in which it existed in. And of course, because of that, nobody understands it and everyone interprets it poorly and stained with Halloween. That's what it is. That's what cultural appropriation is. A movie that came out in the aughts, and you're gonna pretend like you don't know what we're talking about when we say, hey, maybe let's not wear dreads when your hair cannot hold a curl to save its life. You know? But continuing on with the supernatural element, it is always just so much more fun to discuss big people topics through funny, scary, a little bit sexy vampires. Because you're already paying attention, right? You're always kind of looking for, all right, what are the rules? And the rules have not always been sex. There is a very long-standing history with it, especially in places like Romania, a little bit in Greece, just Eastern Europe-ish,
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of that relationship of, oh, the vampire snuck into my bridal chamber last night. What could have possibly happened?
But then you also have the
Or
Malaysian Penanggalan, who is a
exactly,
female whose head comes out of its neck and these organs are attached and flies around biting people at night. So
exactly.
it's
Um,
fascinating.
It is, and I'm so happy that we are not just elaborating on the Eastern European vampire over and over again
Yeah,
because that shit is boring.
it is.
Give me more brown vampires, please. Hollywood.
Hopping Chinese vampires are where
The
it's at.
Jiangxi.
If you've
Yes.
never heard of it, go see Mr. Vampire right now. It's
Good one.
excellent.
There is, I genuinely used to have a competition with people of like, is there a vampire movie that I don't know? Because of just how many that I have consumed over the course of my life and will consume, because that is what I have dedicated my existence on this mortal plane to consuming. Um, but in general, I love discussions that we're having leaving the blueprint within Western culture,
Oh,
right?
100%.
Love Dracula, okay?
Yeah.
There is a place and a time for him. Um, but interesting in the year of our Lord 2025, not really. Like we all saw that terrible show BBC released. You know, there's only so much you can do a singular character. I
Yeah.
think Castlevania did an amazing job with him. But again, there are vampires all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love seeing the new takes on them, especially from places like South Korea,
Oh, yeah.
um, Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
fucking the Philippines, of course, as you mentioned, um, and South America, just across the board. Give
Mm-hmm.
me just any Latinx vampires, and it's usually really fucking cool.
Yeah.
But it's not just cool because it's different. It's interesting because the rules are different, and you don't know what those rules could be.
And it adds a
And so
level of fear and mystery that maybe you don't get with American cinema,
yeah,
and also discomfort at witnessing what's going on or how another culture sees the same kind of myth.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that that myth was applied into their culture and why it existed, right?
Yeah.
Um, this is if you are a person that enjoys vampires, supernatural content of any kind, and really want a historical basis, this is The Vampire by Alan Dundes. This was given to me by my coworker Jean at Glenstone, which is the museum that I used to work at. She was, because she bought it ahead of time because she was going to study under Mr. Dundes, and then he had a heart attack about a week later,
Whoa.
and now I own it.
My goodness.
And you know what? It pays to be the weird girl because people give you all of the stuff they
Oh,
don't want
yeah.
anymore for free.
Yeah. Hey, I found this creepy dead thing. Do you want it? Fuck yeah, I want it. Exactly.
Yes. Creepy, please. Like, I know. That's how I lucked into a Ouija board from 1972
Oh,
underneath my
nice.
altar. It is gorgeous. I've only opened it once. I have used Ouija boards. I don't super love them as a divinatory tool, and certainly not as a way to communicate with spirits.
Yeah, they're too
Not
slow.
because
It's too slow.
that's the big
I
one,
mean,
is
it's
that
like,
it's really
oh, is it
fucking
going to
slow.
take forever?
But not only that, I don't think people understand how mass literacy worked in this country, or really any country.
Yeah.
The average American was not expected to be able to read probably until the turn of the century,
Oh, yeah.
maybe earlier.
There was a
Oh,
reason that.
hello.
Hi. How you doing,
Minion of
minion of
Discord.
Discord? Yeah, back
We like
then
to see
only
it.
rich people had books.
Correct.
And only rich men had access to them. You know, characters like Elizabeth Bennet were way out of left field. Her father would let her read his books, and that was really unheard of for women back at that
Yeah,
time, unless you were becoming a concubine.
correct. If your job was to entertain men, preach in some way in a religious capacity, or rule over your vassals, those are the people that can read.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are shit out of luck for most of history.
Well, and it was understood that if
Um,
you had an intelligent populace, that they'd fuck you. You'd end up with your head on a pike because when you teach people critical thinking, all of a sudden they start seeing that the paper tissue of the lie that they've constructed about what society is around you, you don't
mhm,
buy it anymore, and then you become a problem.
yeah. Um, and the vampire is nothing if not an exercise in classism. It is I mean, in a stereotypical sense, a rich white guy on a castle terrorizing the people of this local Romanian village, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's that's what it looked like. Just pick a different country
Oh, yeah.
for most of history.
Exploitation is exploitation, whether you're literally sucking someone's blood or not paying them for work.
Correct. Um, and throughout, at least in the last 5 years, I'm starting to see vampirism, the trait, being explored in a really interesting way in Hollywood.
Okay.
Honestly, because I think they just ran out of shit to do.
That happens a
um,
lot.
or just interesting material. And so now they're really like, well, what about those weird spooky guys over there? They got some stuff that we can probably make money off of. And I think the one that really comes to mind, and of course it's immediately gone, but What We Do in the Shadows, right?
Yes.
Is probably one of the best comedies that I've seen in a long time.
Was so well
Um,
done.
it really is. The movie is fantastic. The show is really
Yep.
great. Um, we're not going to talk about the way it ended or any sort of like Nandor Guillermo stuff. I'm not interested in shipping wars. But the show itself has such a diverse cast, especially for vampires. Like someone from the Middle East who talks about having concubines,
Mm-hmm.
um, a Greek woman with no surname that is actually acknowledged by the show as being significant to her character. She
Mm-hmm.
is Nadja of Antipaxos. She is, my name of a place. And that is how, again, circling around to the whole not everybody has the ability to read. Not everybody had last names. Last names are for rich people,
Oh yeah.
specifically titled rich
Well,
people.
nobody cared about your last name because that was what you used to prove your identity. And if you have no
Yeah,
holdings or you have no property, then why would you need to prove your identity?
yeah, pretty much. And really any sort of child rearing and marriage, is it more of a business thing than anything. Again, I'm not going to say people in the past were so poor they didn't love their children. That's not the point.
Yeah.
It's more so that sex and marriage and relationships were incredibly transactional because these people didn't have access to birth control. So if you didn't know whose kid that was, suddenly legal disputes over beneficiary becomes a lot more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so the men got together, as they always do, and decided, all right, no fucking allowed. If you're married, you're stuck together, you can only fuck each other.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we step out on you, in which case that's fine.
Yeah.
If you do it though, we kill you.
Mm-hmm. We kill you or we divorce you, and it's kind of, six of one, half a dozen the other, because then you go and the only thing left to you is seamstress, governess, prostitute. I mean,
Pretty
there weren't
much.
many options. Or cook.
Yeah.
You could work in a big house. I mean, if you were lucky and you had good references.
And access to a metropolitan area is
Yeah.
a big one. Not everybody had that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people had the house they were born in and the house they moved to when they got married, and the closest person to you was miles away.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that is a really fucking scary situation to be in if you are a woman in a society that has decided that you are functionally chattel.
Yeah.
So where does my boy come in, right? Where do vampires come in? Simple, it's escapism. Sexual escapism in general. The idea of a creature of the night beyond societal convention.
And therefore not
Coming
beholden
in,
to societal rules.
correct.
Yeah.
Coming in, doing what they want to you, your body, etc., and then leaving, right? It is a very safe, air quotes obviously, fantasy to have, which some people might be surprised to know that Dracula was not the first vampire. Carmilla was not the first literary vampire, as much as I love her and take my name after her. It was John Polidori's book The
The
Vampire,
Vampire.
spelled with a Y.
1819, yeah.
Correct. That was the first piece of vampiric literature, or having a vampire character. And it really reads like a Scooby-Doo chase in 1817. It's a short
Zorks!
story. Yeah, deadass. Like, oh, sir, what do you mean you just killed everybody that I know and now you're going off to Greece for some reason? I will follow you. And
Jinkies.
it's honestly, you can read it in an afternoon. It is I think it's okay considering that it is the very first. I think there's a reason that Carmilla and Dracula are much more popular and much better remembered, and it's because this book was written in the course of like a few days to weeks, I believe, on a vacation with Lord Byron and the Shelleys. That, of course, being Mary Shelley. Sorry.
Of Frankenstein fame.
Ding. And Percy Shelley, or Percy Bysshe Shelley, who wrote one of my favorite poems of all time, which is Ozymandias. And again, something that takes probably a minute to go read. Culture yourself now. But especially that's a whole other conversation, is the Shelleys' marriage. But yeah, some of the greatest pieces of literary history were made over a dare, essentially, by Lord Byron, who didn't even finish his piece, by the way. He got bored like
On
a few
brand.
days in.
On brand.
He didn't even fucking finish. Lord Byron is hilarious, but also such a horrible person.
Yeah.
But Polidori wrote this, and a little guy called Bram Stoker found it a few years later, who all of you may know Mr. Stoker, having also been a part of something called the Golden Dawn,
Ha.
and a which is a secret society in London at the time that also held a very young member named Aleister Crowley, who basically were a bunch of men trying to revitalize the occult. Whether it was through history, whether it was through divination, art, any sort of occult knowledge they wanted. I would say their beliefs are probably closer to Hermetic alchemy meets Gnosticism, somewhere in there as to what they actually practiced. But nowadays, people that sort of follow that are a little bit more on the neo-pagan side. We do not have time to talk about how that has changed, but here is a man, Mr. Bram Stoker, who, if you're in this secret society trying to recapture occult history, magic, all of this sort of thing, London as a whole was going through a period of time where darker things, mysticism as a whole was much more popular. The seance was popular. Morning like behavior and attire was really starting to change and become a lot more like formal, because people basically had to live in mourning for years after the death of Prince Albert, who was the husband of Queen Victoria. So London isn't like a super fun place to live, but everybody is starting to have some really fun ideas. And of course, the first man to start putting pen to paper was Mr. Bram Stoker. And years later, Dracula sits basically as king of vampire media to this day. It is an amazing transition into history that once you kind of start collecting all the pieces, and this is broad strokes, by the way. I'm trying to make this not as asinine as I can. Because that's just literature, right? That is just the well-collected thoughts of an author to entertain. The actual folklore that is addressed by these books comes from, again, all over the world, as we discussed earlier. So the way that the Western vampire has really kind of consumed the concept of vampirism as a whole is something that we really had to move through and understand, like, there is more to this character than the white interpretation of it, basically. Which is how you start getting into people just playing with the idea. You get things like The Hunger, which was released in 1983, I believe, with
Catherine
David
Deneuve
Bowie.
and David Bowie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Which was basically vampirism as an exploration of queerness and polyamory.
It was very scandalous.
It was a crazy ass film to release.
Yeah.
And it didn't, I don't want to say it didn't make too much. I think it did kind of well on its release, but it's one that, like, if you talk about it to people that aren't
It's got
me,
it's got a cult following.
Yeah, nobody's going to know what the hell you're talking about, and it's because of how controversial it was at the time. It still inspired people down the road. Anybody here not know who Alexander McQueen is? He was a prolific fashion designer in the 80s, who unfortunately did die by taking his own life much later. So his brand still exists, but at its peak of the creation, he released an entire collection around this movie that received more public acclaim than the film itself.
Wow.
And they're beautiful. Genuinely, the collection is beautiful. I have several of them saved on my Pinterest.
Nice.
But it does speak to the fact that a gay man had to recontextualize queerness in a more fashion-forward, acceptable way for that film to retain its sort of connection into relevancy.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo, I guess, Alexander McQueen being gay, but there's a lot, I think, about the occult and not just vampires, but just in general, that gets swept under the rug because it's not marketable, it's not convenient, or it's just not the status quo.
Yeah.
And that has never been the point of a vampire. That has always been a vector in which the marginalized, the mystical, or just the frightened understood the world around them and talked about very difficult conversations. Um, we get I think a little unfairly angry at monsters in society, not because they're not doing their job, right? If a monster's a monster, it's got big old teeth and it ate somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But those boogeymen of our cultures, of our folklore, served a purpose. It was when our ancestors didn't have science, didn't have the technological understanding, and so this is how they interpret it.
Yeah.
And I think there's value to that in understanding, okay, this is what this meant to you, in the same way that art was the first language of man.
Yeah.
That we understood our hunting grounds, our relationship with the Earth Mother, with life in general through paintings and carvings on a wall. That, you know, without spoken language, you could assume could mean fucking anything. But through the visceral nature of what has been described and the imagery that it conjures up, that is also information, right? You're told, hey little kid, don't go out in the woods at night or XYZ thing is going to eat you. What did you learn from that? Don't go in the fucking woods, I'm scared.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you feel scared? What is out there? Well, X kid came back completely drained of his blood, or, you know, mangled beyond all recognition. And it is not just a lack of science, it's also a lack of psychotherapy, psychology in general. So if you give it a little bit of buffer or just patience, it's a very interesting way to study the way that people feel about their world in an artistic medium. I should also probably preface this by saying it is definitely hitting. So I hope I said something terribly profound, because it's all going downhill from now.
It's all been intellectual, but now it's the poo poo pee pee man for the next half an hour.
Indeed. Yes. Welcome to Silly Songs with Larry, the part of the show where we sing silly songs with Larry. I don't even think I got that right. But yeah.
How often would you say that the concept of, I guess, pedophilia light in vampire stories, where you have a much older person who happens to be immortal, who is in love with someone that is, I don't know, not even out of high school?
I think it's some of it, I think, is just playing with the idea of, okay, this thing, if everything goes well, is never going to die. So finding an age appropriate partner is incredibly difficult when you're 200 years older than the playing field, right? And the way that most authors decide to counter that is by just going, okay, so they date people who were around the same age as them as when they turned, so that visually it's not gross. But theoretically speaking, literally every vampire is kind of a pervert. If they are any significant chunk older than their human or, you know, otherwise partner. Where this stops being okay is when it is a thinly veiled excuse for pedophilic content. And there are several
pro
examples
stalker content.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, Twilight is a really good example of this, because Edward, I think, is like 1921 adding a couple 100 years onto that. And Bella is a child. So there's a lot that's not okay, and that's another one where you have to swing around to the religion and the religious person that is using this folklore, is using it in a way to uh, reflect the romantic values of a religion that is very fine with dating extremely young and having multiple wives in the afterlife. So
Yeah.
in general, Christianity is not great at the whole don't diddle kids thing.
Yeah,
But
historically not so great.
yeah, and guess what? A lot of Hollywood authors in general tend to fucking be. It's Christian. And again, I am not here to dunk on anybody that believes in Sky Daddy, okay? I fully, aside from the jokes, right? I respect anybody's religion, any sort of spiritual presentation, but the call is kind of coming from inside the house. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
If you actually adhere to the teachings of Jesus and you are not a dick and you are not horrible to people, then I think you can call yourself a Christian. But when phrases like empathy is a sin come out of your face hole, Christian is the last thing you are.
yeah. And anytime that we talk about vampirism, it's very hard to separate it from the church.
Well, I mean, you've got the whole, cross is supposed to back foul spawn of Satan, whatever, you know. I mean,
which doesn't even work on real demons.
I do have to say that I did appreciate it, although this is not a vampire movie, The Mummy, when the character Benny is like pulling out of his Star of David and then pulling out, and saying all the relevant prayers.
Yes, where he's going there, and he's Hungarian, by the way. I'm Hungarian. We are not like that, okay? But well, I guess some of us might be, but yeah, where he's just going through and he's just like, Jesus, no, fucking Islam, nope, fucking Judaism.
Right.
That shit is so funny.
It was very well done.
It is, but that's also really, I think that is an incredibly apt visual metaphor for the way that Hollywood engages with religion, especially a religion that is not their own. Which is basically plug and play, right?
Yeah.
Which is also where you get a lot of the weird, like, Eastern mysticism applied to Dracula in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
Again, obviously there were vampires across the entire world, essentially. But this idea of Orientalism attached to, like, Dracula as a figure, or many other sort of later vampire movies, because it adds exoticism. And that feeling of requirement, I think, comes from the 1937, I'm horrible at dates, movie with Bela Lugosi, who is also Hungarian. I have to rep my people.
1931.
31. Ugh. Again, I am awful at dates. This is why I have Chada.
That's why I have the internet.
Indeed. Where are you now, teachers? Oh, you're not going to have a little computer in your pocket all the time that can do math for you? I have a little computer in my pocket that can tell me anything I could feasibly ever want to know.
Exactly. And hopefully it's actually true instead of being
that
AI
half
slap.
Of it is true. Exactly. Or porn.
Or porn.
I don't think, I'm so serious. I think if we ever actually got an accurate number of how much of the internet is pornography, people would keel over.
Well, I mean, it'd be the same
shame,
thing.
By the way, enjoy what you enjoy.
There's this, like I have this, and let's just imagine a world where everyone who has ever done something horrible sexually against another human being has a heart attack and just dies at the same time. How many
I
dead
think
people would there
that's
be?
I think that's the plot of Death Note, which is an amazing manga.
Yeah, but I
And
mean,
anime. But
I'm
dead
honestly
ass,
starting to
yeah.
wonder how many dead people would there be? How many heads of state? How many cops? How many commissioners? How many lawyers? You know, how many more pastors have to get caught doing horrible things to children? You know,
Yeah.
sorry.
No,
Vampires,
it's
vampires. Well, I mean that is somewhat vampiric. I mean,
it is.
I would say that when you do that to a child, at a child, that is a soul killing. You are taking something that is very precious from them, their trust.
Yeah.
You know, and quite
Yeah.
possibly their hope. And there should be dire fucking consequences for that.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said for that and that discussion in general.
Yeah.
I would love, and I don't think I'm ever going to see the light of day of this, Vampire Lolita. I know that
Mm.
sounds fucking weird, but this really digging into that uncomfortable concept of, and this might already exist, and if
It
somebody knows
does
that, please
actually.
put that in. Oh fuck yeah.
Octavia Butler. Oh God, what was the name of the book? Fledgling. Essentially,
Ooh.
um, the this this person in a child's body ends up hooking up with a trucker who's a pedophile, and she takes advantage of it because she's a vampire and that's how she eats. And that is, it's a hard read for that very idea. But
Yeah.
then Octavia Butler wrote a whole lot of really, really intellectually story challenging material.
Hmm.
But that's the
That
closest thing
is,
I can think of that of a vampire Lolita.
yeah, that's going in the reading list. Okay.
Yeah, it's
But
a very very good book.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean it's because that's what the big hurdle I think now is, if you're really trying to do the whole sexy vampire,
yeah,
is all right, dude's been alive for like hundreds of years. His The people that are around his age are in nursing homes. If they're not Ash, like
yeah.
um so how do you contend with that? And again, most of the time they do the very easy, like they stay mentally and physically at the age that they were when they returned.
Yeah.
And some places have really interesting conversations about that.
Yeah.
Namely, anything that Anne Rice ever writes, really. Not
Mm.
everything is gold, mind
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But the concept of Claudia as a character is
It,
that concept
that was
very well
very
done.
well executed, I thought.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I
Literally. Spoiler alert.
yeah. For any of you that have never seen Interview with the Vampire, now is the time to exit the video and maybe
Oh.
come back later.
Oh, do watch the remake
Don't
because it's
yeah,
so good. It's
do not let us spoil that
so
for
good.
you.
And then the Vampire Lestat is coming out this year, or no, next year, I think. Oh my God.
They picked Akasha for it, and I'm so excited. Rest in peace, Alaya. She was
Yeah.
fantastic in Queen of the Damned.
I just can't, like her changing accent. Is that what you're going to do? I loved her as a concept, but I felt
Yeah.
that maybe her vocal coach could have done a better job with her.
And that's kind of the swinging back around into the
Appropriation,
racism.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the appropriation and the racism applied to a vampiric concept.
Yeah.
Because holy shit, we do not have the time to discuss how kind of racist Anne Rice is, especially in that first book. Later books, but specifically the first one. Yeah, if you guys are just movie watchers, you might think that what is it, Louis is a more sympathetic character. He's not. Yeah, he owns slaves. and really does not have an issue.
And he owned a
with,
brothel.
Yes, and a brothel.
Which some could argue is sort of the same thing, because God only
Kind of
knows
the
how much
same
those poor
thing.
women were paid.
Yeah.
If they were
yeah.
paid.
But yeah, not a good person at all.
Yeah.
He kind of deserves Lestat. And that's kind of saying something.
It really is, because holy shit, does that get dark.
Yeah, that book gets fucked up really quickly.
But it's so good. Oh my God.
It is. The whole trilogy is very good. It is very difficult to read, I will say.
Yeah.
Especially the later two books.
Yeah.
Anne Rice is kind of racist, and so you do just kind of have to live with that, and I hate it.
Yeah. That's why I prefer the TV show.
The TV show is amazing.
Yep.
It follows the books pretty well, but obviously diverges at very important and visually obvious points.
Yeah.
And if you have a problem with the race changing
Mm-hmm.
in the show, it's you.
Yeah. Oh,
it's you that's the problem.
Yes. Yes.
I'm pretty sure we can move on as a society from sad white slave owners.
That would be so nice.
I don't know about you, but I'm
nice.
kind of good.
Like, can we make slave owning sympathetic again?
Yeah, so when I tell people that I'm the vampire girl, it is obviously not with blinders on. I am very, very open and enjoy talking about the racial, classist, misogynistic relationship of the vampire. If we're, the 1931 version spawned 1,000 really good AO3 fics, by the way, of Jonathan and Dracula. Right?
That's archive of our own for those of us not in the know. And if you think fan fiction is empty and devoid of anything positive, there are fanfics that I have read that are so much better than any mass market story that's ever been released.
Yeah. Twist and shout for my supernatural girlies out there. I know all of you just had a panic attack. That is one of the single best pieces of written word, period, that I have ever read.
Yeah.
It is that good. I truly, truly think, and I know this is the vampire show, but capitalism is an endless hell machine that crushes dreams and potential, and I see it every day on AO3 because these people should have been screenwriters, and instead they are entertaining me with some very specific ex-reader fluff fix. Don't stop doing that, by the way.
I know, right? For a few years, I was addicted to soft, gentle fix. And
I love that.
And it was especially Stucky, soft, gentle fix, where like both of them are in recovery from the trauma they've suffered, and it's just like all
and
soft and
good
sweet.
Things are finally happening.
Yeah.
I'm
all about it.
I mean, I am also asexual, and so the AO3 experience can be very frustrating for someone that is not interested in smut. But the filters are your friend. Learn to use them.
Yes. 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 And enter stories that have AOB with caution. Or ABO. ABO.
Yeah, any dead dove do not eat.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not shaming. I'm just saying that, you don't want to end up in a kind of blue waffle situation.
That's one that just oh man. It's the 2 girls 1 cups that will really keep you up at night.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's never going away. That's never going away.
Again, like what you like. Death is soon.
Oh yeah.
Life is short.
I am not yucking anybody's yum. I'm not going to shit on anybody for their preferences, but there are certain things that I'm not into, and hey, we all like what we like.
I didn't ask to see those.
We all like what we like within within reasonable bounds, and as long as
Exactly.
everything is consensual.
This is somehow gonna devolve into is kink okay at Pride, and I don't care about that conversation. I truly don't. um,
Uh,
but continuing forward, like I think vampirism as an exploration of lesbianism is also really fucking interesting.
that is interesting.
Um, and it happened a lot sooner than you would think, other than obviously Carmilla being some of the first, even though there are very odd, like shoehorned in moments of heterosexuality with
Yeah.
Carmilla. She actually has a former husband that is like trying to hunt her down. Um, it's a little odd, to be honest, but it is very obvious, even given that Carmilla and Laura's relationship is very out of the ordinary for the time. That it is much closer. It is much more emotional and sensual than um the average friendship between girls that we see described in other forms of literature, right?
Yeah.
Like Jane Austen did not write the friendship between any of her female characters like Sheridan Le Fanu did. That there is a deliberacy there.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and it's
Elizabeth and
and
Charlotte were very, very platonic.
yes. So when you move into a story like this, um, where it is very obvious that there is some kind of connection. Now, this is unfortunately another one of those. Laura is technically a child and Carmilla is not.
Mm,
That is kind of uncomfortable, but again, this is the second vampire book to ever be written.
yeah.
And it was made by the world's most French sounding Irishman. So I'm not expecting a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is explored later in Hammer horror, actually, in the 60s, with a movie that is called, oh, my goodness, it's The Vampire Lovers, I believe, which is about Carmilla. And it portrays
It looks like
the
there's a trilogy, the Karnstein
Yep,
trilogy,
yep,
for their daring lesbian storylines.
yes.
The Vampire
They were,
Lovers, Lust for a
yeah,
Vampire, and Twins of Evil.
yep. So again, all of the above good movies. I'm really only referencing the first one. Um, and it is, again, the whole selling point is that they were lesbians. Um, it is still a tragic story. Like obviously none of these relationships really pan out. There are like heterosexuality is still placed over this behavior of being a lesbian, right?
Yeah.
But there are moments of genuine connection and genuine chemistry and yearning that is beautiful to see in this movie, and that isn't played for laughs. Like it isn't played that it's lesser than. It's just that it's sad that
Yeah.
this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Um and that was crazy to come out of the 60s.
Right?
Especially when you have authors like Robert Heinlein who are a part of the whole like free love movement, but it's free love only if it's between a dude and a lady.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. I
and
knew a guy that once told me that it was okay if two women had sex as long as a man was watching, and they couldn't enjoy it. They like had to do it just for the guy.
and I want to acknowledge that, because that is a lot of how that movie was marketed.
Oh
Was
yeah.
basically fetishizing lesbianism,
Oh
which is
yeah.
a tale as old as fucking time.
Yep, it's
That
it's male
lesbianism,
gaze, male gaze
yeah,
lesbians.
yep, that
Yep.
lesbianism is only okay if it is performed in a fetishistic, masturbatory way,
Yep.
essentially.
Oh yeah.
And always for the voyeurism or the pleasure of a heterosexual man. Um, and that's fucked up, and we don't like that.
No, we don't.
Um, and we still see it, I think, today in queer media with this. I don't want to explain this in a way that makes it sound like I'm going um, bisexual people need to choose, because that is not what I'm saying here.
Okay.
Um, bisexual people are valid whether they are with men, whether they are with women,
Mm-hmm.
non-binary people, whatever that means to them. Those relationships should not be paired up or down, right?
Yeah.
But it is very interesting that a character's relationship is never taken seriously unless it is with a man, even inside of queer media and fiction.
Oh yeah.
um, I see this more with heterosexual authors that are writing queer characters, but
Yeah.
we are guilty of it as well, right?
Well, bisexual people get a lot of hate from
Yeah,
both the het and the queer community because it's a quote you can't make up your mind thing. It's like, why do I have to choose? Why
yeah,
can't I just be attracted to who I'm attracted to? I mean, like that's the whole point of LGBTQIA, right?
yeah.
But there are a lot of people who feel very uncomfortable about dating somebody who's bisexual because that means if you see somebody with opposing genitalia, you're obviously going to leave me. And that's like a psychological conversation that needs to be had between you and your therapist.
Yeah.
I mean,
And honestly, maybe this sounds insane. I really think, well, okay, this is not controversial. I think all people should see a therapist at least some point in their lives. It's like
100%.
it's like seeing the doctor.
We are steeped
Um,
in so much stress and we have so much cortisol being dumped in our systems that I at this point I would not be surprised if a lot of the diseases, mental, emotional, and physical that afflict us came from the amount of stress we have to endure by simply trying to survive. And it's so
I
much
think
worse
it's
for
yeah,
heavily oppressed people.
yeah. Because I mean, I don't know how much that stress is creating these illnesses, as it's making people more and more susceptible to them.
Or it's just
There's
exacerbating
never,
stuff that's already
yeah,
happening, right?
yeah, that
Yeah.
it's never okay. Nothing is ever fine for a fucking second
Yeah.
ever in
Yep.
somebody's life, whether it's the news, whether it's personal,
Mhm.
whether it's work.
A physical
Um,
encounter, like whether it's a microaggression, whether it's an active aggression. It's just
yeah, it never ends ever. And
yeah.
that is really hard to live with.
Yeah.
There were so many points in my journey with therapy, after sort of, well, a lot of major trauma and some mental health disorders that I have. One of the biggest things that we would always run into was just, that is the way that society is. You
Yeah.
are responding fairly to terrifying stimuli, and there is nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
The world is scary. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. I don't know whether these people are going to retain their rights. I don't know if I'm going to retain my rights.
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know how to exist in a world where I am constantly at the physical, emotional, and mental mercy of the men around me. That is fucking scary as shit.
Yep.
And there is nothing anybody can do
Yeah.
until 300 years was it that they said that we would finally achieve gender equality?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. And that's a long time to wait,
It is.
and it sucks.
You
And you're
know.
really,
I mean, talk about planting the seeds of oaks that you'll never stand under. You'll never stand under the
yeah,
shade of the things that you do. And I think at some point, as a species, we kind of forgot that was our job.
yeah,
It was our job to make things safe and make things okay for people. And we isolated ourselves into these little tin units where we separate ourselves into single home families, and then it's me and my family, me and my child and my wife against the world. And
yes,
then we wonder why everybody hates each other and nobody trusts each other.
yeah. And so we live in an inherently imperfect world.
Yeah.
it's not a controversial statement.
Oh,
but
yeah.
man, does it suck to fucking live with.
Well, and it
and
sucks
have
to know.
sort out.
It sucks to know that there are a more than I would like to acknowledge number of people in the world who are more than happy to exacerbate that.
Yeah.
To make it as awful as possible.
Yeah. And a lot of what I was saying to you the other day, and just in general, it feels like the ultimate goal of all of this is to put the serf back into the serfdom.
Yes.
So that the rich and powerful of the world can be vassal lords over people that have never left this 5-acre stretch of land unless it was to go to church.
Well, think about it.
That it.
You've got old town mentality that is, you have this entire apparatus called AI that people are now starting to date and get intimate with and go to for therapeutic and psychological discussions. And they are not seeing that it's a large language model. They think that it is the universe waking up and telling them a secret. And it's funny how that secret is always, you're a superhero and you have to save everybody.
Yeah.
And like how quickly are we going to allow ourselves to fall into relationships with AI chatbots instead of, it's one step closer to just throwing everybody into a man-made simulation, if at all possible.
Yeah.
And it's like, the Wachowskis were onto something. It's not the machines that are going to do it to us.
No.
We're going to do it to ourselves.
And Google, I saw that vampire AI chatbot thing that you released around Halloween. You disgust me. You personally disgust me.
Oh God, there's a vampire chatbot?
There is. And it's so creepy. I hate it. It's just like the most generic, shrimpy little character that does AI chatbot things.
Well, apparently there's a guy on Reddit saying, I made a chatbot that specializes in Vampire the Masquerade lore and has a fondness for the Bloodlines game. Same thing?
It's hard because I am somebody that is fervently anti-AI because I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Because generative AI specifically is creating images off of the backs of the dead, masters, and people that just didn't say that it was okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And
people's images are being used in porn without their knowledge and without their consent. It's so gross.
Yeah. And until that is regulated, or I would personally love to see generative AI just not be something that people can use, period. But if it is regulated to at least the images that are there are being used with consent, I would understand that. I am also a Vampire the Masquerade player, storyteller. And I have run a successful campaign because it is quite recent. The rules in this suck, seriously. Every updated version of this book is worse than the last.
That's unfortunate.
That's okay. The art in it is kind of fantastic. The Venture cover page, whoever did that, nice. But I think it is entirely possible to run a campaign without AI. At the end of the day, if you use it and you're not using it for monetary gain, that's your choice. I think there's
Do
a
realize
lot of
that it does come with there's an economic impact and there's also an impact environmentally. I mean, it uses a whole lot of water.
So yeah, environmentally, psychologically, and ethically, that is something that you need to know what you're getting into.
Well,
but otherwise, I'm not going to crucify somebody
for no. I mean, it's a choice, but you need to understand that you're a product. You need to understand that the whole goal of the AI model is to keep you talking. Like, it doesn't care what they talk about. It's the goal is to keep your attention.
Yeah.
You know.
And it is, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you know what, if your players are enjoying themselves, you're running the campaign more Jesus. I'm there. If it's running smoothly, everyone's having a good time, you're not using it for monetary gain, who cares?
Yeah.
Your job as their storyteller is to make it entertaining, and just giving people a good time on a Friday night. And if you do that, then you did your job. But I have a much harder time when Hollywood execs or people in very serious high public scope jobs use AI. I think those people deserve to be crucified before somebody who's using it for their Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah,
campaign.
If nothing else,
That's
pay
my
the
opinion.
fucking creators you're stealing from.
Correct.
You know.
I think I truly just broke my heart, the entire concept of AI, when I started seeing art that was very similar to an artist named Quinny on Instagram, who passed away. I think in or around COVID.
Yeah.
She had been very, very sick, if not her entire life, but most of her life.
Yeah.
And she finally passed away then. She was one of the most talented artists that I've ever seen, really, on Instagram or otherwise. And I started seeing the star-inspired art that she is very famous for come out of a fucking machine. And that was it for me.
Yeah.
With no consideration for that person's time, their history, their story, their wants, their hopes.
Well, when
you just ripped a fucking image.
When you turn everything into a zero-sum game and you have to make money against all odds, what are you going to turn to? You know, I mean, if you don't have a choice to make a living the right way, and all job avenues are shut down to you, you know, you've gotta make money somehow. And yet there are tons of scammers out there who are making millions of dollars. It is so egregious and it is so gross. And I hope that we're coming closer to having a solid conversation as a society about it.
Yeah. I think what is it? I think we kind of have. It's just in the United States we're not good at that. I think the EU has already started regulating AI.
Well, I mean, the guy we got running things here is kind of problematic.
Anybody that's been on TikTok in the last 24 hours, we've been eating good. Those Bubba memes are kind of going hard.
Oh man. All right. Wrapping up.
But,
what is your last word on the Renaissance of the Vampire?
My last word is going to be that vampires are ubiquitous in our culture. They are beautiful, they are mysterious, they are predators of the night, and for the first time we are starting to see the same boring face broaden. And cinematography, literature, video games are all exploring one of my favorite concepts in the world and breathing new life into it. Nosferatu was the first time a vampire has been genuinely scary on film in fucking decades.
Oh, Joe Hill.
Sinners was one of the best explorations of cultural appropriation and white cultural violence against Black people that has been made. And it's also just a really fun fucking horror movie.
Yeah, it is. Good fucking music too. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Just everything about it.
And acknowledges the struggle of the Irish people and working class within the United States without doing it in the annoying conservative, I don't want to talk about black people way.
Yeah.
And portraying that dynamic in a very nuanced and interesting way. We have humanist vampire seeking consensual suicidal person, which
Yeah.
is a long ass title, but it's on Shudder and it's amazing. Of the modern perils of dating and mental health, and what it means to, engage in assisted and ethical suicide.
Yeah.
Um, we are on a new edge, on a new age across really all things occult. I think this is could be said for witchcraft. This could be said for, um, fuck, just movies in general and the vampire. We as a species are getting really sick and tired of getting treated like the little guy. And I think our villains and our monsters have changed to expand, and to encompass the world and the amount of variety and story that can be produced from the little guy.
Yeah.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you for
that
watching.
is